Hi, I'm John Ruggiero, and welcome to this episode of New Jersey Paranormal. With me today, as always, is my teammate Chris and special guest Judy Kay, Psychic Medium. Thanks for being with us, Judy.
Great to see you again.
In this episode, we're going to talk about something that's really interesting to me. We're going to talk about kids who have medium abilities or psychic abilities and the parents of those children who may be dealing with or wondering if their children, do have some kind of ability. Again, there's been a lot of shows about this. There's been a lot of documentaries. This is the first time that we're really talking about this, and we're bringing in Judy today because Judy has lived the life and has experience with this. So,
well, the first thing I want to ask you is, like, when it comes to a child who can communicate with a spirit or, someone that's dead or whatever gift they may have, is it something that has been passed down or possibly ability that someone living or dead had in their family?
More than likely. The chances are very high for that. I mean, it can happen where somebody will say, no one in my family had it, but back in the day, it was not looked upon very well to have the gift. So a lot of times, people stay quiet about it. So there'll be no way of really going back to tell for sure, but then most of the time you can.
Yeah, I found out later on after my issues that I did have a family member that had it, but it was taboo because they were Roman Catholic.
Yeah, and thank goodness the church has changed now.
A little bit.
Well, I would think it would be something like everything else, eye color, personality traits that...
Like a DNA
in
type
the
of
DNA,
thing?
yeah, it's kind of something that's maybe passed down. I think it's possible.
Definitely, I think so. It's just like a person that has a gift of music,
right,
like a wonderful singing voice, and the child might have it,
right,
and the voice is going to be a little different, but it's the same thing.
Or you hear like, the little Charlie is a great artist. Well, his uncle was also an artist. You know how I am when it comes to some things in the paranormal. I think too much, and I ask a lot of questions. That's me. I'm always wondering why. When it comes to psychic kids or kids with these type of abilities, I always wonder, again, logically, in my brain, I'm a spirit. I've crossed over. I have my consciousness. I'm still me, only I'm not living anymore. Why would I approach a child, of all people, if I'm in search of a person who can see me and communicate with me on any level? Why am I reaching out to a child who I'll probably scare, knowing that? I know I would scare a child if I was a spirit. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, you have to look at each person living is different than the next person. Deceased people are the same way. They're all different. So you can't say, well, what you would do and somebody else wouldn't do. Now, when this case scenario is, if it is a relative of the child, they might be coming to the child and standing there over them, enjoying watching the child just have a normal, regular day or evening, and they don't expect the child to see them.
Okay.
So that way they could surprise them, and they are also, the spirit's also surprised. And sometimes they think that they were loved so much, maybe, because if the spirit had been alive during the child's life. So it's like, let's say, for instance, the child's 8, and the spirit just passed away a year or 2. That spirit might think, oh, look, they kept saying how much they miss me. Well, look, I'm here. And then the spirit can get horrified too because it didn't mean to scare the child.
Let's take it from another angle. How about a spirit that's not even associated with the family, or how does that become? Is it the child a beacon? Is the child a conduit?
That's the bigger question for me, is that as a medium, you know how you see spirit.
Right.
What is your opinion of how spirit sees someone like you?
Like a lighthouse, and they're out in the dark storm in the ocean.
Okay.
So if it's someone I don't know, or somebody that is like, I don't want to use the word earthbound, that term, but kind of, sort of, they would come to someone because they want to communicate. They want someone to hear them. Now, if that person's a child, people can be selfish. Deceased people can be selfish. That spirit at that moment, or all their life, I don't know, could come to the child, show themselves to the child, or start talking to the child, and they're being selfish because they want the communication.
So you're saying that's the light they see. They open that door. They have no idea who's going to be on the other side of that door. They just see the beacon, and it just so happens to be a child, so they make what they can of it just by, probably out of frustration too. You would think if they can't find the vessel to communicate with the living, now all of a sudden they see, I finally found someone, but it's a child. So maybe there's a little agitation there, or that's why you get the desperation.
You know, and sometimes they just want somebody to recognize them, because they might have gone to all their family members. Their family members might not have known their presence was there. Couldn't hear them, and then they just want somebody. And then there's probably some spirits that would walk past once they get to that beacon. I always like to also look at it as like a TV antenna is going, yeah, over here. They come over and they go, oh, it's a child. And a nice spirit might just say, oh, I'm not going to bother them, and go to another.
Right.
And where he might say, this might be my only option, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, right.
Depends on. Yeah. How can a parent tell the difference between a child with a gift that really actually sees and communicates with spirits, and one with an overactive and vivid imagination?
Good question. Now, this is for parents that haven't dealt with this before. I would say if a child really has a very strong gift, that child is pretty much going to stay to themselves. They will have one or two friends. They're probably not going to have a lot of friends. They're not going to be a real socializer, because they're usually not alone when they are alone anyway. Okay, and they have a different feel for it. So if a parent sees a child constantly kind of being okay with being by themselves a lot. Another thing is, sometimes you could have older spirits around a child, and all of a sudden you're doing something say you're the dad and you're outside the house and you're trying to figure out how to put all this stuff in the trunk. Remember, people used to tie their trunk shut and stuff like that. A child could be standing there and saying, well, it'll work better if you do this, this, and this, and they're turning around and look at you. You're 6 years old. How could you know that? That happened to me. The neighbor next door wouldn't let his kids play with me after the same situation, because I was having deceased people give me the answers. Like, I can do very well sometimes on Jeopardy and get a whole category I know nothing about. Why? Somebody's feeding me the answers on the other side. Same thing can happen with a child. Yeah. They'll have adult knowledge too.
Because I've read, again, doing the research, that 40% of children have imaginary friends. There was a psychological evaluation that they did, a poll. And again, as a parent, because I am a parent, you're a parent, you wonder what point, when little Susie's there talking to her friend and having tea with her and not sleeping at night because the man's in the room, at what point do parents really, should they be concerned that there is some, is the devil in the details? Do they know more than they would about the imaginary friend who was an elephant snout?
Is it more obvious?
Yeah. You said a key point there. If they're playing Tea Party with an imaginary friend that's a child, and then is scared to go at night with a man in the closet, that child definitely has a gift. So the imaginary friend,
you don't think would be
the man? You said
it would be a grown-up. If it were a child, what are the odds of them having an imaginary friend who's
a man? It can happen. Okay. The percentage isn't that high.
Okay.
Unless, the one instance where this one little girl, she was about 8 years old, I was doing readings at an expo, and the parents and the grandparents were talking to my husband about how she couldn't sleep and how she was tormented and things were going on. And then the mother one day, she's all the kitchen knives are starting to be missing out of the kitchen. And then she finds the knives in between underneath the mattress and underneath the pillow. Then the little girl says to her, well, there's a man outside that tells me to do that.
Wow. So she's doing it because someone else, the spirit's telling her to do it.
Yeah. And this spirit would be outside a window or in her bedroom. The poor child was at wit's end. So I sat down with her, and I told her how to, and I was calm about it. I said, oh, is this happening or anything? Don't create more fear.
Right.
You have to show them how to take control. that it does happen to other people.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but sometimes this can be normal. This is a huge case, though. This is something where it was severe. But I told her how to do it, and I had her do something at the windows every night, and if she felt them around, what to do. And it stopped.
So, when it comes to the abilities of these children, again, I've done a lot of reading. I watched some documentaries. I've watched some TV shows. What's strange is that it seemed like there's always different kind of variations in the methods of communication from spirits. Even with mediums like yourself and others that we've known for years and years, some say that they see images. And again, I've seen that in what I've read. Others will be able to communicate with the person, see them, talk to them, whereas others have claimed to where they could touch an object and sort of
get
feel,
impressions.
what the spirit, who it was, who it
Some people said
to.
about seeing like a film, like a short clip in their head, and just like
Is
they
it
can't stop
different
it.
for people when it comes to like children and everything, when it comes to types of communication? And why is it different? Why is it not the same?
Well, there's two ways to answer that question. The one way is, when you have a gift, some people can have a gift to see the deceased, but they weren't given the gift to communicate. Okay, so then some people can hear them but can't see them. Now, when it comes to why different, I get all those things you spoke about. They can talk to me in this ear. I see them. Sometimes they show me little movie clips. In fact, it was a missing child. I saw the whole thing, picked up what he was wearing and everything, and I saw the whole thing as it played out. So they can do all kinds of stuff.
Was that where you actually could see inside of a room and you could actually identify the furniture too?
No, that was a different one.
That
was a different one. This is one that happened out in the Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah, and
but is it the level of their ability to communicate and your ability to communicate on both sides that allows for what method is used? Like, can the spirit only figure out one way? Look,
so transference of energy.
I'm trying to show myself first. That's not working. So let me try. Or is there no rhyme or reason?
Well, it also depends. You're right. It depends on the energy of the spirit. Sometimes the message is more important, and they might not show themselves at all, and they just want to talk. Sometimes they don't have enough energy to do both. It depends on the spirit's energy, but that energy can fluctuate. Just like when you go into doing when you go into do your ghost investigation, you know how the batteries are drained.
Right.
Well, they can use batteries to get their going and get into more communication. It is their choice how they want to communicate. That is the spirit on the other side.
So it has nothing to do with you as the person with the ability, your ability to interpret what's coming in or your level of mediumship abilities. Does that factor in at all for a child, let's say, who kind of not sure what they're dealing with?
Right. If the deceased person's trying to get their point across or wants to be seen, then they'll communicate. Sometimes, though, if you have a very good gift or a child's very gifted, they can catch the spirit by surprise.
Okay.
The spirit could be sitting there in a chair, and all of a sudden the child could go like this and go, whoa, and catch them by surprise.
Now, on this line, too, this child has this ability. Can the child be taught how to completely shut it off or to selectively control it?
Definitely. And that's the most important thing that a child needs to know. It's very hard to get through this life without controlling your gift. You have to make the voices stop. They have to stop trying to get your attention. Sometimes you could be in a conversation, like say per se, I have it totally shut off right now.
Right.
If I had done a few readings prior to us sitting here, the other side still could be open a little bit. I don't have the door totally slammed and locked shut. I could have a spirit coming in here now going like this to me. It's like a pull. It's a pull. It's a pull. And you have to shut it off. And that point, it's a little hard. So you have to teach yourself basically by when you wake up in the morning, it's already shut off. You shouldn't have to do anything when you first wake up. It should just be shut off constantly until you want to open it. But you're still going to have those little surprise times.
Right.
but they won't be as much and they won't be as bad. These kids have to go to school. They have to do good in school. They can't, they're always probably going to look like they're a little extra special here, you know, because they're going to either know something they shouldn't know, or they're accidentally going to say, dude, did you see that?
Well, we even found out too, like doing our research, about that the children often feel, especially at night, for some reason, nighttime and being isolated and being alone, they're scared, they're terrified, they lose sleep a lot. So the alternative is to go and snuggle up with mom or dad.
Well, and you had your own experiences as part of this. This is where you can relate a lot more than I can, because you've actually dealt with this sort of thing as a child.
I didn't have the nice side of it, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. And by the time I turned 17, my depression and isolation was so strong that I did consider suicide.
And I would think that's the norm. I mean, being a child is tough enough for some kids. Right. Their hair's not quite like the others. I didn't have the niceness. I didn't have the nice spirit that came in, or the aunt that called your name, or some of the nicer things that you said that you had. My things were very dark. They were very terrifying. I had 3 sisters who wouldn't share a room. Most people think that having a room to yourself is awesome. For me, nighttime was that doesn't mean things didn't happen during the day. It's just that night was the worst.
It is.
And everything suffered. My social life, my development, everything. And I just drew more into myself until I got older.
It's very hard. And I know I was very, very blessed growing up in a house where my mom, my grandmother, my great aunt, it was normal. And it was hard for me to imagine not having that. So you could at least
ask questions as a child, right? I mean, if something was going on, you could go right to your parents and say, but these kids don't have this resource.
But here's the funny thing. It wasn't that my parents weren't supportive or they wouldn't. It was just I myself had made the decision. I've got 3 sisters that they're, you know, popularity.
It wasn't mainstream. Ghost hunters and all these shows weren't on TV.
Catholic.
So to even talk about spirits in the house was sort of,
I literally thought I was mentally ill.
One time, I guess I was in 7th grade, and my father used to love to take us to historical places. And we went to a cemetery. And the cemetery's in New Jersey. It's very, very close to my heart. I'd been many places, and it's an historical area around the cemetery. Right. I walked in the cemetery. My best friend from 7th grade, I mean, it was one of those girlfriends that you'd sleep over this one's house, or she'd be over yours, and they were like, we both had 2 moms. And in the cemetery, I picked up this strong spirit so much that when we got in the car, my dad's driving, my mom's in the front seat, my girlfriend has got herself up against the wall saying, don't you sit near me, get away from me, don't you sit.
Oh my God.
Freaked her out. Because sometimes when you see a spirit, the spirit connects with you. Sometimes your eyes will even look a little funny. I don't know if your sisters caught that.
I was like, they used to lock me out of the room.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's it's horrible. So it's great that you have these shows that we sit down and talk about it and everything, because it's not fair. It's not fair to the family. It's certainly not fair to the kids with the gift.
We've met a lot of kids during the years. I mean, we've been doing this a long time now, and people will come up to us and say, the child will be with them, and they'll say, she sees things, he sees things. And again, we have a lot more open society when it comes to the paranormal.
It's nice
now.
That's not so taboo, that we can say those things. Even if we're not comfortable saying it to other family members or friends, that we can turn to somebody else.
But again, I'm the parent now of a child who's showing these type of things, and I'm concerned that maybe there is something going on. Maybe my child is seeing things and is troubled by them, won't sleep at night, won't sleep in their own room. Right. What would you recommend as a resource to a parent who may think that they're dealing with this in their home?
Well, I work with parents with these issues with the children, and a lot of times I'll have parents that or one parent, maybe not both, will drive them all the way to some place they find out that I'm going to be. Okay. And they'll sit down. And just so, even if they're not getting a reading, that I can sit there and talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes. I always say, call me. If you haven't, just call me. It's okay. It's so hard for anyone that doesn't have the gift to understand. But when you're in the middle of it...
I could imagine. I don't know, I couldn't imagine, actually, because...
Yeah, because...
Not knowing how to shut it off, not knowing how to control it.
Or what it is.
So you would recommend what? Them seeking out a reputable medium? Or
a reputable psychic medium, because you also have to watch that the spirit that the child is seeing is actually the spirit that they think they're seeing. Okay. So that's why I'm saying a reputable psychic medium, because not only can a psychic medium read the living, we scan and read the deceased and the spirits, because sometimes spirits can show yourselves as this cute little 9-year-old little girl with blonde ponytails and things like that, and she's not. So you do need a second opinion. But if you have a family that has the gift, and they do know that, and they're helping a little bit, that even helps even more.
Oh, I can imagine.
You have to have a close-knit situation. It has to be a close-knit.
What would the process be for a child like that, though? I mean, would they take on sort of a mentoring from a medium to teach them how to shut the door or close the eye? And was that what you would recommend? I mean, is that the process for controlling something like that and understanding it?
I think the first job for a psychic medium to do with a child like that is to calmly and in a relaxed atmosphere just say, it's okay.
Right.
That's crucial, because I'll tell you my very first experience. 17, went to my parents, and I came out about it, and I said, you have to commit me. I'm mentally ill. And my father says, no, there's something going on. We haven't discussed this. This has been with you your whole life. We're going to send you to a psychic medium.
Great.
Do you know what she did to me?
No.
She started doing the cards on the table. As soon as one flipped over, she jumped up and said, get out and don't you ever come back again.
No psychic medium should ever do that to any client under
It's like
any
finding a bad doctor.
reason.
You go to another one.
That should never happen.
No,
that
it shouldn't.
should never, ever happen. Because I will actually read adult clients that have maybe some very nefarious business dealings, and I can't say I'm not going to read you anymore.
Right.
Yeah, that's not what we're here for. I believe this is a gift given at birth to the people that are supposed to take this gift and help others with it. Because anything I've learned through all the work I've ever done through my whole life with my gift is we're here to love and help one another.
Well, on that note, from my perspective, and anyone out there that has it, the dark side like I did for whatever reason, how do you tell a child it's a gift when it's nothing but darkness that's coming through?
Just like the child that I had before, when I was saying she was hiding the knives and everything. Luckily, her family was into the metaphysical world. They weren't readers or anything like that, but they were into like spiritualism and things like that a little bit. You just have to constantly make the child feel relaxed. And they have to feel relaxed that when somebody walks into the room, they're not
right.
We're not talking about the garden variety, you know, spirit here.
Right.
We're talking about dark entities
Right.
that purposely came to create problems and
Right.
tortured me.
Well, after she looks, this is when they're there, and they have to get used to seeing deceased people, if that's what's going on constantly. They can't get scared the minute they see one. They can't. Because if you're scared, you can't work.
No.
Right? So what the child should do is just sit there, learn to relax, and just like nod, and just acknowledge
Face
that they're
fear
there
and push it away.
Not acknowledge them. And then that child is going to like say you're the spirit.
Right.
And if you showed yourself, I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to smile and nod, and then I'm going to basically scan your energy.
Okay.
And I'm going to be able to sense that energy, and that's when I decide if you have to go or you stay.
Wow.
Don't throw Aunt Susie out of the house just because she's deceased.
Right.
So that they might not know who Aunt Susie was. So they have to learn to determine good and bad.
Right.
Okay.
Now, if it's bad and evil, yes, what they have to do is they actually have to point their finger. I always say, talk to them like you're walking out of the mall at night, even though a child wouldn't understand this, but like you're walking down the street at night and somebody tries to come up to you and try to grab you.
Stranger danger.
Right. So what would you do? You get away from me, out now, and you start making them out. They don't have a choice. They do have to listen to you.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's your space.
This where you can have intercession from the other side, because this child probably, and doesn't even know it, has either angelics around it or deceased loved ones that can do certain things, and they'll be right there.
So is that part of the process of closing the door?
Right.
And keeping them from doing what they're doing.
Right.
I learned that much later. I was an adult when I learned that. I wish I'd have known that as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I had a deceased person try to throw something. Well, he did throw something at me one time at a store, but I was an adult. I'm in an antique store. And now you're like touching objects. Well, I do that on days off, but for fun. I'll go into it, like I don't work enough, and I'll go in. I was like, oh, what has an attachment? And my one girlfriend, she goes, if you see anything with attachment, let me know. It was a man's dresser from the turn of the century, and it had a mirror on top. And I walked past, and I looked, and I thought, oh, he's miserable, and I just kept walking. And so I said, she came up because it was on the top floor, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, if you want to see anything, I said, it's that mirror. And she goes, well, why aren't you talking to it? And I said, I'm not talking to him. And no, because I knew he was grumpy and miserable. Well, remember those big metal trays from the 50s and 60s? Yeah. Well, there was one at the corner on an angle. It's like, it would be right there. All of a sudden, all I know is my deceased father's right here, and I feel my deceased, and I see his arm, and I feel it. First I felt it, then I saw it. His arm was here, and he put his arm up like that. That deceased man in the bureau took that tray on an angle, was throwing it to my head. My dad came around and did this, and the tray hit the floor.
So he deflected it.
Right.
So you're saying that, again, these children should address the spirit and be forceful and claim their space and
not feed into the fear.
But I'm sure for a child that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
I guess the message would be more or less, again, from what I'm hearing, would be to just, as a resource, look for someone who you think is, well established in the field in your area. Ask them for some kind of mentoring, some kind of counseling, right. Because again, from what I've seen, there are, like what you went through, there are some scary experiences. And again,
because I don't want anyone out there to get to the point where I was, because there are people who have committed suicide.
They get depressed.
Who never got past it.
Right.
I was fortunate.
Absolutely. That is so horrible what you went through, and I cannot imagine the fear.
So that's what I'm saying. If the spirit world doesn't intervene, which you hope it would on some level, I'm more looking towards what the logical, again, me being the person, what would I look for? What kind of resources would I be able to seek out if my child and I didn't understand the spiritual level of it? What would I look for? And again, it sounds like the best thing would be to reach out to someone,
a psychic medium like
you could try. Not some, like you said, there are different mediums out there who aren't so reputable. Look for someone established, someone with a reputation, someone who you could trust, who's going to mentor your child and teach them how to deal with this gift, because ultimately it is a gift.
Absolutely, it is a gift, and and the psychic medium should also allow the parent to be present.
Okay, so...
And if it gets real bad, and after they teach the child what to do, sometimes the psychic medium should go to the house.
Okay.
And do a lockdown, per se, and then the child has a little bit of time to use their skills and learn slowly, instead of have to go home and have to get like some kind of SWAT, like be as like a SWAT leader, SWAT team.
Okay, well, thank you, Judy. This was definitely
helpful
Very
helpful
to a lot of people out there, I'm sure. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and I'm so glad to have helped.
Thank you for watching this episode of New Jersey Paranormal. We'll see you next time.